Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Age of Barbarians. So, many of you have probably figured out by now that I really like Crian's Age of Barbarians games. I know, I hide it well. I like the gameplay, I like the visual aesthetic, I love the gratuitously awesome sex and violence treated unironically, which is something I greatly enjoy in my sword and sorcery. Anyway, the next title in the series, Age of Barbarians Chronicles, is currently in development. It's at the moment at version 0.3.2 as of me recording this. And now's a good time to check it out and see what we can look forward to from this. So, first things first, this game was originally teased as Revenge, an Age of Barbarians story back in 2017 at the end of Arena, which would follow Zodan and Yana after the events of Arena as they hunted down the sorcerer Zordax and got their, revenge for everything he did after conquering their city. And that's still happening, except now the plan is for additional stories with their own protagonists to be added in later post-release, with specific mention so far of She-Red, Belith, and the Deathbringer as potential playable characters. So not a bad idea, since it allows you to explore the side characters, expand the world a bit. It's a good idea in that regard. Plus, hey, perfect for DLC. It's not just like horse armor for shit. So what makes this game different from what came before? There's actually quite a bit. So for starters, we've gone from a 2D hack and slash platformer or a 2D one-on-one fighting game, and we're now in a beat 'em up styled action RPG. Think Dragon's Crown crossed with Golden Axe with the violence in TNA cranked up, and you'll get the idea. 2.5D levels that allow movement up and down as well as left and right, equipable weapons and gear, leveling up the character's stats, and particularly Dragon's Crown element, there's a hand cursor that can be used with the right thumbstick to highlight certain elements for clues or lore, as well as interacting with stuff like chests and switches and stuff in your environment. Also, for the first time in this series, there's co-op multiplayer that can be selected from the main menu, with each player controlling either Zodan or Yana, each of which have their own special abilities that draw from a blue energy bar when used. Zodan is a berserker with a lot of, combat abilities and stuff like that, and Yana is a psychic who can find hidden objects in her environment, seduce enemies and keep them distracted, or eventually, it's not currently in the build, but eventually be able to summon, killers, saber-toothed tigers to attack enemies. So that's gonna be fun. And there's also a recruitable NPC that you meet while escaping from Skyron that'll fight alongside you and makes for a good meat shield. So there's also the possibility of having AI characters that follow you in battle as well, including possibly the actual other playable characters. So that's going to be something to look forward to as well. There have also been some changes to the combat system itself. There's a new low attack that can be used to sweep enemies off their feet, and you as well for that matter, along with a small jump move that's used to counter it. It also can be used to dodge up and down when combined with the appropriate directional input. There's also an auto-defense system that kicks in when you stop moving or attacking. So long as you remain completely still, you will automatically try to parry or dodge any attack that comes near you. Now, obviously, some attacks can't be dodged, can't be blocked, so you're going to have to worry about that. Speaking of blocking, there's also equipable shields that can be used to, instead of parrying, actually hold it up and just take the hits, but those break after a while, so you have to keep that in mind. The biggest change by far, though, is the stagger meter. It's a yellow bar that appears beneath an enemy's health that fills up as they get hit or their attacks are parried. When this maxes out, they're momentarily stunned, and that's when you hit both light and heavy attack buttons to finish him with a nice gruesome fatality. There's a couple of them for each kind of enemy and for each character, too. One of which is a Korgoth Barbaria reference, and yeah, Grindsoft's reference game is on point as usual right there. It's nice to see that one. As for the current build, there are a number of Rogak lairs, the Rogak from Age of Barbarian Extended Cut, to explore. There's enemy camps full of Zorax's soldiers to clear out, as well as there a Scaranian refugee camp where you can meet NPCs and such, all separated by an overworld map that, whereas the original Age of Barbarian had a overworld map that went point by point from level to level, this one is more open in terms of where you can go. And it reminds me a bit of the one from a 1991 game called Moonstone, A Hard Day's Night. Just like that one, you can only travel a certain distance before needing to stop for the night, at which point it can lead to one of those classic Age of Barbarian camping ambushes where you have to either, mash the button or wiggle the controller in order to actually wake up before you get captured. The added wrinkle here is that if caught, you'll need to break out of the hole you've been dragged off to, with future versions also requiring you to find your stuff as well as you make your escape from the dungeon. So that's something to look forward to. Said dungeons include both pre-made and procedurally generated instances, and they're filled with traps, treasures, secrets, rescuable topless maidens who are, well, let's just say they are often very grateful to be rescued, and we'll leave it at that. Yeah, the Age of Barbarians aesthetic is very much on display. I mean, to the point where there's a full nudity option that shows off both characters maxed out endowment sliders, so to speak, when you strip them out of their armor. So, yeah, there's probably going to be some all-naked runs of this game once it's done. So, what comes next for this game? Well, obviously there's bug fixing, balancing, polish to do. Aside from the sort of graphical and pathing glitches that I noticed while playing, there's doorways can be sticky if you come in from the wrong angle. You have to go back and try to work your way through in order to go through. So far there haven't been any bugs that stop me in my tracks, but that is kind of annoying. Some of the traps that get randomly placed, especially the spike traps, can be placed in ways that get you as soon as you enter a room, which is very irritating, to say the least. And for the moment, running out of stamina doesn't do anything. So there's still some work being done on the combat system. Also, the power selection feels a bit unresponsive. You kind of have to press it once and then hold it down in order to use the power, I've noticed, and sometimes it doesn't work quite well. And since it's also the button for picking stuff up from the floor, that can get a bit touchy. Right now, right trigger isn't bound to anything on the controller, so I'd use that instead, personally. Let's see. Well, there's also another thing, the aforementioned hand cursor. If you're using controller like I am, you can't use your mouse in order to move it around. That's only available if you're playing on mouse and the keyboard mode. I wouldn't mind if the mouse was also an option for using the hand cursor, even if you're using the controller. I recognize that might be difficult if you're playing two-player, with one person's using the keyboard instead of another controller, but it would make it a little bit easier to use. As far as what I'd like to see in future updates, well, new kinds of enemies and dungeons are a given, along with the associated capture scenarios. I wouldn't mind seeing outdoor dungeons like a deep forest or a larger slavers camp to break up the underground areas. New NPCs to interact with, get quests from, as well as voiceovers, at least for the cutscenes themselves. As far as music is concerned, I'd go with a mix of extended cuts orchestral style with Arena's metal soundtrack coming in when the fights start getting pretty fierce. That would be pretty cool. Aside from that, just, new stuff to kill with new gear to kill them with. All that good stuff. Anyway, right now the boss area, the Fortress of Zordax, is accessible. However, it's merely just a mention that you can't actually go there because it's inaccessible. So we're still looking at how the game is going to progress in terms of how you go from escaping the city to finally getting revenge on this bastard. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. Beyond that, I'd say the game is shaping up to be another great entry into the series. I mean, the game is being funded via Crian Patreon. The link is in the description below. So if you want to support the developer and try it out for yourselves, then you can go there and drop them a few bucks. Updates and new builds come regularly every week, so expect all I've said just now to rapidly become obsolete. I mean, that's the curse of these kind of early access preview things. But I'll be keeping an eye on it and do a full review once Chronicles is complete. You can bet on that. Until then, I'm going to have more reviews and interviews coming in, so until next time, stay savage out there, people.